Hello everyone, it is Juice here, bringing you today a Genshin Impact 4.0 tier list. Now that we're about a week into Fontaine, with the new units out, I thought, why not evaluate the Genshin meta once again? My opinions from last tier list may be different as I went away, done more research, and played the game more, and of course, that obviously will now shape my opinions on the Genshin meta differently. However, generally, this will try to be an objective meta tier list, so let's get into it. First of all, I believe Cyno is pretty middle of the road. He's not too bad. However, he has just a lot of gameplay issues. Think about it. You put your marks with Nahida on the enemies, he clears that enemy wave, you have switch off of him even if he's still got burst up time, or the fact that he's only really comfortable at higher constellation, that without Nahida he's pretty much useless, or how you can play Raiden over him or any other Hyper Bloom team and get the job done fine. So he's not the best. I'll unfortunately have to say that. Okay, now Dehya, you'll be surprised, I'm actually going to move her up a tier, and that's because she's gained a new use, and that use is with Lyney and Lyney Mono Pyro. Plus, she still does have her use in Melt You, so that does remain. However, it's gained an additional use now. I would only use this tier characters that have genuinely nothing that they contribute to the game and the game's meta. So I believe, yes, it's funny to clown on how bad Dehya is, but she does now have at least one viable situation. Then we have good old Baizhu. Now, I think the thing with Baizhu is that it's just, we all knew he was going to be mid, realistically speaking. He's very niche, and while his healing and mechanic are good, and he does provide a nice buff to Dendro teams, I feel like we all knew that he was just kind of gonna be whatever. So he's a bit forgettable. He's very luxury, and I think the issue is in the most teams where you would use him, you can use Zhongli instead and just get away with fine. You don't lose that much damage. I'm pretty sure I did the math on it once, like with Alhaitham, and you only lose about 3 to 4k damage each time if you use Zhongli instead of good old Baizhu here. Then we have good old Kamisato Ayaka. Now, I did rank her quite highly last time, and I still believe that she is a very good DPS. I don't think that that's fallen off, but of course what has fallen off is freeze. You have to put quite a bit of investment into her to get the best out of her. However, if you play her in a well-invested mono cryo team, she does pop off. For example, Yanfei isn't objectively worse because she can't kill pyro slimes. Recent abysses, she's actually not been too bad in freeze. I played freeze this abyss and it actually went pretty well. So yeah, then here we have Candace. The thing with Candace is she actually does have a use in some Hyper Bloom teams, Nilou teams, not completely useless as some might think she is, so I'd say give her a chance if you're into those kinds of teams. Barbara, once again, she actually has some uses in modern Genshin as a Hyper Bloom unit for complete free-to-plays, a modern freeze unit for complete free-to-plays, for example, Ayaka, and her healing isn't that bad either, so yes, she has a couple of applications. Next up, we have Collei. Now, Collei is not too bad. Thing is, she's Dendro, but already gives her some value because Dendro is just a broken element, you know, how low investment that you can play it. The only main problem with her is that her AoE with her Dendro applying burst is really small, and she doesn't apply that many units of Dendro per second, so that's kind of why she falls off a bit. Her constellations aren't too bad. If you want to build damage on her, she doesn't do too bad either. Now, Amber she's fine. Like for what she does, but in every other factor, she sucks. Now, what does she do exactly? Like, that's actually useful. She can be in a Hu Tao VV Vape team. Put her on LG, put her on 4-piece instructors, and then she'll have a bit of value. However, outside of that, there is basically nothing you can do with Amber unless you use her in that one low investment role. She's basically useless. Her burst doesn't apply pyro for very long. We know why Amber sucks, okay? That doesn't have to be said, but she does have that one use, and that's why she's down here, same as last time. I do believe that Dehya's fresh uses are a bit more valuable than Amber's old uses, just because with Hu Tao, VV Vape, it's still quite good for her, but generally, teams like Double Hydro, they just take the cake completely, especially when considering higher investments. Chongyun, I believe that it's like you can use him, but the thing is, there's not very many applications for him. Reverse Melt is a pretty good team that you can use him in, but you can just play Rosaria or Kaya instead. And you can't really use him in freeze because of Shatter. And yeah, that's just really all there is to it. There's not really much else that you can do with Chongyun. His constellations are geared towards freeze and his own personal DPS when those aren't the best in the world. Next up, we have Aloy. The thing with Aloy is that you can use her. She can be a cryo DPS if you really want her to be, but she can also do a tiny bit of cryo batterying. It's not the best because it's very inconsistent, but she has a use, which is why I don't really want to put her down here. She does at least have a use. It's just not a very good one, but she can be used. Shocker. Then we have Albedo. Albedo, in my opinion, what he does is actually not that bad. He's got EM when you pop off his burst, pretty good damage with his skill. He's good in Xiao teams if you don't play the Faruzan version. Like, if you don't play his main team, then Albedo is pretty good. And you can play him in Itto Mono Geo, where he actually pops off quite a bit. But that team's pretty niche, so he doesn't have that many modern applications. Yes, the EM sounds good on paper, but most Dendro teams don't really want Albedo as a flex. There's usually a way better flex that you could be using. Then we have Mr. Benett. Do we need to explain why Benett's good? Super high in demand, using international, the best team in the game, a really nuts unit overall, can battery himself very well if you stack ER on him. He can even do decent damage himself if you want to waste a Missplitter or two. So yeah, or two. Don't refine Missplitter, that's terrible advice. Then we have Diluc. Thing is, people always slander this guy, but as I said last time, he's not the best pyro DPS, not by a long shot. He's definitely fallen off. In fact, he was never that great in the first place. We just didn't have as many options back then. But I still believe that he can provide decent damage if you invest in him. He's not the worst thing ever. There's worse DPSs that you could be playing. So Diluc is fine, in my humble opinion. You can play him if you want to. There's much better options, but he's not gonna... Yes, I'm sorry if you lost your 50-50 to him and that's why you hate him, but come on, like, he's not that bad. Then we have Diona, very nice cryo battery, good cryo shielder, can also heal, and at her C6, she has some EM she can pop off if you need that for nuke. Yeah, alright unit. Then we have Dori. The thing with Dori is that most of her roles, other units can perform them just fine. Like, electro application, got Fischl, and Fischl does damage. Energy, Fischl does that better. And if you need just electro in general, like I said, Raiden can do that really well. Like, basically every other electro unit kind of covers what Dori can do. Eula. Now, the thing with Eula is she's very tight to play, really nice smooth combos. But the thing is, she's just so front-loaded with that burst of hers, and being physical really holds her back. And just overall, there's much better units that you can be playing nowadays in terms of DPS. And she hasn't aged the best, her kit. And sure, there is Mika now, but Mika doesn't even succeed at being Eula's best in slot support. Mika could have been Faruzan for Eula, but he just didn't turn out that way, unfortunately. And even with C6, he's still just kind of on par with a C6 Rosarian in Eula's best team. So yeah, Eula's unfortunately, he was just done dirty by Hoyoverse. Next up, we have Faruzan. Now, I think Faruzan's an amazing unit just because of how potent she made Anemo DPS units. Like, think about it. Xiao, he suddenly became an amazing hyper carry thanks to Faruzan. Then we got Wanderer, who's really good with more investments and whatnot. And with a C6 Faruzan, he just pops off, does a lot of good damage. Also, just if you're using other Anemo sub DPSs in your team, like let's say you're playing Kazuha in a 3-Numo Wanderer team, or if you're playing Lynette, who we'll get onto later, in a 3-Numo Wanderer team, because Faruzan's there, that's just automatically going to do more damage overall. She opens up some good options in that regard. Then we have Yanfei. Now, she's a solid pyro DPS. There's not really much to be said about her. I think the thing is, she can also be built as a tank. She can be built as a shielder, and her shield's actually quite strong and considerable. You can play her in Lyney Mono Pyro as well, and that's a really nice application she has. And once again, she can play a similar role to Amber in being a pyro applicator for VV Shred in that team, and her DPS also is not the worst thing in the world. I'm not gonna put her there, it's a bit high. I'm not gonna put her above like those guys. I'll say she's here. She's got some uses. I'd say her extra utility makes her a bit better than Diluc, but yeah, that's what I believe in terms of Yanfei. Fischl is easily one of the best units in the game right now. She's amazing with her A4 and Aggravate teams, and she's also just really good in Dendro teams as a whole. She's always been good even before that in Electro Charge teams. Her particle generation is great. Her constellations are insane. She's pretty intuitive to build as well. Sure, she needs crit, but you can also build EM for Dendro teams and whatnot. And using an R5 stringless, for example, is what I mean, because you get that. Before you used R5 stringless and EM was wasted, but now you use R5 stringless and you get some more damage out of it. So that's pretty nice. And overall, her kit just ties really nicely together. Very nice, you can reposition Oz, and also just really nice sub DPS as a whole. You add her to your team, you're getting a nice amount of DPS. Now, same as last time, I still believe that Ganyu is better than Ayaka for all the reasons I stated in my previous tier list. She simply has more applications in the hardest abyss there was. Ganyu shown over Ayaka, and she is more contemporary than Ayaka, and I believe that has a lot of value. She can be used as an off-field support in many scenarios, not necessarily, but you can still use her in Mono Cryo, which, like I said, is a pretty good team. Gorou, I'm gonna say, the thing is, his Geo team that he supports, they're very niche. Yes, he's a really good support. He can match up to Benett's level of capability of supporting in those Geo teams, but who in the world is actually playing Geo teams? Be real for a second. Here we have Mr. Shikanoin Heizou, and well, this guy is hilarious. His damage, I'm so sorry, it just isn't much. I'm gonna say he's around here. Yeah, sure, I talked big about how Faruzan can make animal DPS is really good, but Heizou's just not up there. He doesn't really he's not best in slot anywhere. You can usually just use Sucrose over him in any supportive roles, so yeah, he's just there. He's funny, definitely. The Itto play, man, that's never leaving my brain, but even so, the character himself is just, he doesn't do much. Good old Hu Tao, absolutely one of the best, PSs, just dedicated DPSs in the game right now, in my opinion, because these folks are support, but these dedicated DPSs, they're definitely like a notch above the rest, and I wholeheartedly believe that Hu Tao right now, just whenever there's a single target challenge, she does really well. If you're willing to learn how to play her, really good damage. Double Hydra's a super strong team, and it features Yelan as well, so that's even more damage. Even if you don't play with Yelan, she's still really good. There's many options for her, and if you hyper invest in her, get her C1R1 with really good artifacts, you will never call anything in this game hard again, simply put. Okay, Ayato's damage is solid. You can use him, but like I said in my previous tier list, most of the time when you want the Hydro unit and use Ayato, he's kind of like a jack of all trades, but not in like the way where he's good at them all. He's just like, he can fulfill whatever Hydro role you want him to, but you can ultimately use a more specialized Hydro unit for all those roles, and he'll do better. Any other Hydro unit, I mean, will do better than Ayato. Yelan, Xingqiu, Child, name any Hydro and the 5-star, and they are most likely better than this guy. Now, I'll hype them and putting above the Cryos this time. A lot of people believe that I underrated I'll hype them in my last tier list, and after much testing and trying him out, I triple crowned him. Yeah, I can see what they meant. He's a great unit, and I've had a lot of fun with him, and he definitely does have more value than these Cryo units nowadays in terms of dedicated DSs. I believe that Hu Tao is still better because if you vertically invest, you have the option to vertically invest in her, but with Alhaitham, his constellations aren't that good. Hu Tao past C1, her constellations aren't that good either, but still there. Alhaitham overall, really nice. Put him in a team with Nahida, pops off. Oh my goodness. And overall, really nice in spread or hyper bloom. And you don't even need Nahida with him. You can use him in like a double hydro hyper bloom team if you wish. Of course, not as good as a Nahida team with him, but it's still an option. So yeah, good DPS. I've increased his rating from last. Now, Arataki Itto. I believe he's around here. The thing with Itto is he's actually no, he's not that bad. His damage is actually pretty good. The thing with him is that his damage is good, but he's too niche. Like, he's a Geo unit, a Geo DPS. The reason his numbers are good is because he has to make up for not being able to break shields. He has to make up for not being able to have that extra utility. He has a lot of fun to play, a lot of damage and all that, but unfortunately being Geo, there's a reason that his numbers are good. It's because that holds him back a lot. Now, good old Beidou, I believe she's around here. She's a decent unit, and she fell off a bit because, Dendro rose and she fell off a bit. She's still great in AoE though, like, where she was good before, she's still pretty good. It's just that there's teams that are better than said teams now. Like, you generally play Hyper Bloom over Electrocharge. However, because, Hyper Bloom in of itself is an extension of Electrocharge, and unfortunately, she is pretty bad in single target, and there are a lot of single target challenges nowadays, but even so, where she excels well. Now, Miss Hayak, and Aiki's not too bad. I'm gonna say he's around here. Get a C2, and he'll perform nicely for you. He can work in reverse melt. If you're playing a free-to-play freeze team, he can work there too. Not a bad unit overall if you don't want to pull for other two Crows here, but you still want to try a freeze team, or if you want to play just reverse. Now, Kave, the thing with Kave is, I think he's pretty decent. The thing with, I think he protects himself from bloom self-damage, pretty nice. He can be a replacement for Nilou even if you get a couple of his con. I'm actually not sure if I want to put him above Cyno though. No, I'm not going to put him above Cyno, but I will say that he is decent. If you have him, you can invest in him if you want to give Bloom a shot, but apart from that, if you're not interested in the Bloom niche, he's kind of a dead unit. I don't think I have to explain myself. It's Kazuha, damage bonus %, really great grouping, that burst of his which can continuously apply element. He's an amazing unit no matter what way you steer it. Get this guy if you don't have him. Now we have Kaching. I believe that with the rise of Dendro, she's absolutely gotten up there. She's more useful now. She's still kind of like in this mediocre tier here, but even so, I do believe in her capability. I think she definitely rose. If you don't play her in Dendro, then she falls off hard. She just sucks. But if you play her in Dendro, then nice. Good for you. You've got yourself a pretty good unit. In Aggravate, play her with Fischl, have a fun time. Then here's Klee. Now last time I was very rough on Klee and I put her in the low lowest tier, but honestly, Klee, I don't believe that she's like insane or anything, but she's definitely not that bad. Play her in Burgeon and she's fine. She's the best Burgeon unit on the market right now, which I did not realize at the time, and also decent in Mono Pyro. Of course, Lyney has unfortunately beaten her at that role, so she's unfortunately no longer the best of that niche, and she has pretty good Pyro application, and if you get her to C2, she can even support Lyney. Apart from that, Klee is just, she does her thing, and her thing is not very good, it's quite clunky, her kit's a bit of a mess, but she is definitely not as bad as I said that she was originally. Kokomi, I still fully believe she's an extremely high value support in the current meta. I'm gonna put her above Ayaka even. I believe that with the rise of Dendro and overall the need for healing has increased so much, just look at the Constipated Beast, Kokomi has become such a valuable unit. I remember when everyone was slandering her, and now look at her, she's risen to the near the top ranks. I definitely believe she's a worthwhile unit to pull for if you like Dendro or if you're just dying all the time. Layla is a cryo shielder. Now, pretty good actually. You'd be surprised at how a cryo shielder actually has quite a few applications. I'm gonna stay here, and her constellations are fine. It's overall a fine enough unit. Actually, no, she's pretty much like equal to Diona. I don't know why I don't think I would put her here. She's pretty much equal to Diona because they do similar things. Just Diona has a heal, and her damage isn't very good with her burst, but hey, at least it's better than nothing. So our first new Fontaine character in my tier list. So where does Lynette rank? Well, I'm going to say, if we take a look here, just sifting through, and I believe that she would sit at around here. The thing with Lynette is she is good in aggravate, and apart from that, she doesn't have many other uses. Put her in Wanderer Freenamo, okay, decent sub DPS, and then put her in Lyney teams, okay, but only really good in single target, and she doesn't have that much good grouping for him, which kind of sucks because Lyney can be quite target at times. So unfortunately, she's not like super great, but she's not too bad either. Her C6 allows her to become an on-field driver, or yes, for aggravate teams, pretty unique and interesting, but aside from that, she is unfortunately mid, lacking in nutrients. As for Mr. Lyney, well, as I've said, he's overtaken Klee as the best mono pyro unit, but does that actually mean anything? Is his DPS actually any good? I would say he's here. He is pretty much just fine. Like, if you want to use him, you can use him, but the thing is that why would you play Lyney mono pyro when you could just play international? But his numbers on their own aren't actually that bad. He has decent team options. However, his signature weapon is a big boost to him, so I don't know if I would call him free-to-play friendly per se, but yeah, no, he has free-to-play option, but like they pale in comparison to his 5-star weapon, so there is that to consider. Then we have Lisa. Now, once again, I believe Lisa has an application not only Hyper Bloom to you, but if you want to use her as a unit in some scenarios with Eula, for example, then you can do that. She has some supportive capabilities. Her own personal damage can be alright if you want to invest in that, but apart from that, she's just fine. Then we have Mika, a physical support. Now, the thing is, being a physical support, he doesn't have much to support, that's for sure, because there's not many good physical units right now that can contest with elemental units, and he is definitely no Faruzan, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's bad on a whole. I'm gonna say he's around here. Just fine. He's pretty cute, but outside of that, his actual usability is not that high because, yeah, you can get him to C6, same with Eula if you really want to, but even then, he's not the best in slot option. Kirara, a lovely Dendro cat girl. I'm gonna say that she's around here. She has pretty good application, a good shielder, nice for exploration too, that's always a plus, but overall, a decent Dendro unit. Now we have Mona Magista. The thing is, her Hydro application is not the greatest, and she's mostly just a nuke unit, and the only place she can really be used in Abyss, in my opinion, is Ayaka 3. So for that reasoning, I will slot her around here. She's still pretty good as a Hydro, sure, but she's not gonna do a bunch of applicating if that's what you need her. She's pretty much just kind of like, nah, like, good if you want to use Ayaka, otherwise, only good for nuke. Now, Nahida is obviously up here, one of the, greatest units we have right now in terms of Dendro. If you like Dendro and you want to play Dendro, then she is an incredible. Slot her into any Dendro team you want, and she will pop off hard. And yeah, pretty incredible. I would say she's around here. I'm gonna put Kazuha above because if you don't play Dendro, then Nahida's not as good anymore. But if you play Dendro, then obviously she's the best unit for the job. So now we have Nilou. The good thing with Nilou is she's cheap and she is a pretty good enabler to bloom with her passive. So I'm gonna say Nilou is around here. Yeah, pretty good unit. If you want to play bloom, Bloom. She makes her bountiful cores are quite strong. And yeah, there's not really much else to be said about her. Then we have Ningguang. Now, she is a lovely Geo unit, but the problem is that Geo unfortunately sucks. Shocker. So I'm gonna have to say that she's pretty much just on the same level as these guys. She doesn't really have that many applications. If you really want, you can play her with Zhongli and like a Hu Tao, Shengqiu, Zhongli, Ningguang team, but that's and you can put her on Thrilling Tales. But that's if you literally have so little options that that's the only thing you can do. But apart from that, she's just a Geo DPS, man. Thing with Noelle is that as a Geo DPS, she's not too bad. I don't know if I would put her on the same level as Ningguang because she has some extra utilities. So I'm gonna say that she's around here. Unfortunately, being a Geo DPS holds her back a bit, but that doesn't necessarily mean terrible or anything. She's just fine and a decent unit for beginners. I think with Geo Traveler, he's okay. He's not terrible, but usually they're just a nerfed version of the Archons in general. So I'm gonna say he's around here. You can use Geo Traveler to get a taste of whatever Furina's gonna be like. We have no idea what she'll be like as of now when this video is being posted, but she's okay. He's not really that interesting if we're being honest. Then you know what, we'll use Lumine here as Dendro Traveler, so we'll give a fair rating of Dendro Traveler. And I think that Dendro Traveler is around here. Surprisingly good, surprisingly nice Dendro rotation, and if you don't play Dendro much and you only want to play it sometimes, then she gets the job done just fine. So, and she can also do some deep threat damage if you really want. So yeah, not too bad. She's there if you want her. Now we have lovely Knight of Favonius Jean. I believe it would be around here, or yeah, around here. Thing is, she's Animo, which is great, but the thing is, her applications are like Sunfire. Sunfire is not the best because in AoE scenarios, it knocks your enemies away from you, and in single target, there's typically better teams that you can play. And even avoiding that, if we're just talking about her as an Animo unit in general, she's not that good compared to other Animos. And yeah, she can heal, but you know, there's other healers on the market that can do that job better than her. Bye. So then we have, okay, right, jokes aside, there is nothing to be said. This thing has no uses. Where can you use her? But she's actually good. She sucks. Like, she sucks. Now, I hate to do this because Razor was my first main, but he's not that good. Thing is, Thundering Fury, my bad, did actually give him some kind of playstyle that you can try out with him. So if you want to play him on Thundering Fury, then give it a go. He's a physical DPS, so he's kind of doomed from the beginning, but at least he has that to his name. Now, Rosaria, in my opinion, is actually a very good unit, just on the basis that she does really nice damage as a sub DPS, great in freeze teams, great in reverse melt teams, and overall really nice with physical threat. So where she works well, but as a sub DPS in general, I'd say she's solid. I'm gonna put her behind Lyney here, but yeah, decent DPS. Kujou Sara is quite niche, but at least she is good in that niche. Like, she's good with good old Raiden Shogun, but aside from that, fairly, you know, you're not going to be using her all the time, just kind of here. So good for her, but in reality, she does actually do a decent amount of sub DPS also, if you consider that in Raiden Hypercarry teams, you can get like 100k, you know, out of a burst for like buffed by Benett and Kazuha and all that. So yeah, she's alright, but can usually just play Fischl in her place, and that'll be a bit more nicer energy generation, and the DPS will be relatively the same. Okay, Sayu is pretty much just the same as Jean. I would even say a little bit better than Jean, because if you roll around for elements, you can create some fun, goofy combos that are quite unique. But aside from that, there's nothing else to really be said. Now, Shenhe, I'ma be real. I have C2R1 Shen, so of course, I like character, and I believe that she is an amazing cryo support. Amazing. But now, she is very luxury. Very, very luxury. I'm going to say that she is around here. Thing is, if you want her, like, she is a she make cryo brilliant, and she's cheap to build, and overall very good power level, and you can play her enough of only a slant if you have nothing else, and that actually works very well on her, and some even further over her signature because of how comfortable it is. So I do believe Shenhe is a very good unit. Yes, cryo's fallen off, but even so, pick up Shenhe, and all of a sudden you'll be wanting to use cryo in the abyss all the time. Now we have Kuki Shinobu. I believe that she's just a really nice unit in Hyperbloom teams, and overall her modern applications make her a very useful unit. Her healing's also quite good, and you can play her in physical if you really want to, and yeah, and she's just become really nice. You build her on EM, she's fairly cheap, and without further ado, she's just a good unit. Raiden Shogun's definitely up there. Like, you know, C2 is amazing, C3 is amazing, C0 really good at Hyperbloom, even decent hypercarry damage at C0, contrary to popular belief. And Sucrose, I'm going to say, is similar to Kazuha. They basically do the same thing. I just say Kazuha's a bit comfortable to play, but even, and can obviously hyper invest in him. He'll be better than Sucrose after that. But Sucrose, really nice, great PV shredder, great driver in some teams. She can globe swirl, all good. Now we have Child. My opinion has not freaking changed, and it will not. In fact, let me just do a little bit of rearranging here just to be a little bit more accurate. There we go. I still believe wholeheartedly that Child is one of the best units that you can get in the game. Come on, international. I don't think much more has to be said. It's amazing team. It still holds up even in 4.0, and it's incredible how it does. He is a great driver / enabler that does quite a bit of DPS, and his skill playstyle is brilliant. Yes, he's hard to play, but being hard to play means that he just has a really high skill ceiling. Even if you play him badly, you're still gonna do some pretty decent damage. Of course, try and play him as well as you can to get even better damage. And yes, I still think he's better than Raiden because I got like 10 million comments about that last time. So then we have Tighnari. Tighnari is a pretty decent Dendro DPS, mostly single target oriented, but even then, I believe he's quite good. So I'm gonna put him here. Then we have Thoma. So he's actually fairly decent since he can play on Virgin teams. Virgin's not too bad if you're interested. And he's also not a bad shielder in most scenarios, so I'm gonna stick him here. Venti, best girl, my favorite character of all time. Now, I really do like Venti, but in terms of actual meta usability, I would say, gonna say around here, because I believe that yes, he got a lot better after Sumeru popped off for him and he's just able to suck up more enemies again. They nerfed a lot of Inazuma enemies, so now he can suck those up too. Of course, he's still not the best in every scenario, but he's good in quite a lot of them. So because of that, I think he's around here. He's decent, and I like to use him a lot. And he's also very comfortable in the first two chambers of Abyss. Next up, we have Honda Boy, Mr. Wanderer. Now, if you have C6 Faruzan, then he is incredible. He's actually surprisingly powerful if you put the right investment into him. So I'm gonna say he's around here because I'm assuming you're investing in him like you should be, and he does pretty good Animo damage. Pretty similar to Chef, not a little bit worse if both are C0, but he can easily beat that out with a couple cons, and even so, really nice. A lot of tailor-made stuff for him. You gear him out right, he will perform for you. That's my opinion. Do I have to explain? It's Xiangling. Xiangling impacts from everyone. We're still living in that age. Next Archon is the Hydro Archon. You know, like we could be ending up with like International 2.0 where Xingqiu gets replaced with her. You know, you never know, man. It's Xiangling. She does really good damage. She's in International. International is an argument in of itself. Okay, now Xiao is actually, I put him quite high last time, but the thing is that Wanderer is basically equal to Xiao. Yeah, I believe that Xiao is still very powerful with C6 Faruzan. However, you know, all these other DPSs, they don't need that as much, and even so, their damage is still pretty similar. I would even say that, although I personally like Xiao more, I believe that if we're assuming both for C0 or 1, Wanderer beats him out a tiny bit. Xingqiu, I still believe, is the best character in the game due to his incredibly high demand, and not only being good in Dendro teams, but in traditional teams as well. Vice versa, he's good everywhere. I'm fully in support of thinking that Xingqiu is just the best because his cons are great, really good with Yulan. He's insanely powerful. Okay, so now we have Jinyan, and Jinyan is also really terrible. However, okay, fine. She exists in Monopyro, and that is a use case. I cannot act like that's not a use case. She's not that good in it, like at all, but she is better than Dehya in it. But I would believe that Dehya is better than Jinyan now, just on the basis that she can work with Lyney. Yae Miko, I like this character, and she has a pretty good power level. I'm gonna say that is below Keqing because she's very strong. Actually, no, I'm gonna say she's above Keqing. She does more damage. So she does more damage in Keqing. She is quite much lower than Fischl because, unfortunately, Fischl just has more utilities. But even so, if you're playing like a Yae Hyperbloom or Yae Aggravate or Spread team, she's gonna be really good there. Really nice unit, in my opinion, and excellent power level. Then we have Yao Yao, pretty good Dendrocator, good healer. I'd say that she should be pretty much equal to Baizhu. They do pretty much like the same thing, but in that regard, I believe that these guys are both pretty good, so I'm even gonna do a bit of rearranging here and rank them a bit higher than they have been. So yep, being Dendro does really give you some privileges. Yulan, I still believe she is one of the best characters in the game. Pulling for her means that almost all of your teams get an upgrade. Hydro can be used basically everywhere. Put her with Xingqiu and you've got a monster duo. This right here, as I've said before, it is already a team. It's nuts. Now, Yoimiya, a great single target DPS if you need a single target DPS, and in my humble opinion, she's actually not too far off Hu Tao. They're at similar investment levels, but once Hu Tao gets her C1 and R1, yeah, there is a much larger gap. However, even so, I do believe there's other single target DPSs you could be picking up. Yoimiya is not too bad if you like a more beginner-friendly character. Yunjin's she's becoming better in my opinion. There seems to be more and more units that seem to be appreciating the buffs that she provides, but still not enough as of now for me to put her super high on the list. So I'm gonna say that she's still here for now, just kind of like the road, but not the worst thing that we. And then we have Mr. Zhongli, who I believe has a similar value to Venti, where he's pretty good in some teams, like with Xiao teams, or Animo like DPS teams, or Geo teams, Hu Tao teams, and he's also good for people that like a more beginner-friendly experience, or just don't like getting knocked around all the time because they're all mobile. He is very much the comfortability unit. If you have enough damage with your other 3 characters, you can stick Zhongli on there, or you can have him do damage in a Geo team. It's really just up to you. And pretty much, we have rated every single character released up until now, and here it is, everyone. 4.0 Genshin Impact tier list. Now, same as last time, please comment down below if you disagree with something. Or I am 100% open to listening to your opinions and considering that for my next tier list video as I have here. So without further ado, this has been Juice signing out, and I wish you all a brilliant day. Thank you for watching.